horticultural therapist. This webinar will explain what Horticulture for Health is, presenting a 5 classification framework while identifying models where horticulture promotes health. What is this term Horticulture for Health referring to? Horticulture for Health refers to wide-ranging activities, programs, and services where horticulture used in various capacities and applications can positively impact human health. I began using the term in 2018 as a way of expressing and including disparate activities that I saw were being used as recreation, as therapy, in business, and social and food pathways to better health. As the scope of these activities just kept growing, it seemed sensible to use a framework to put these in a larger context, organizing them by similar characteristics. It was an evolution and one that keeps expanding. It's exciting to see the numerous applications for horticulture health connections, and it includes models like mobile food markets seen on this slide, therapeutic horticulture with food insecure populations, reflexology paths, hydrosols, and so many more activities. It does not include psychotropic drugs or cannabis. The term horticulture for health seems to be resonating with people and groups, now being used by 2 organizations, the Nova Scotia Horticulture for Health Network and the Florida Horticulture for Health Network. And 2 journal articles have been published. Acta Horticulturae published Horticulture for Health Framework in 2021 based on a presentation at the American Horticultural Therapy Association's annual conference, hosted in collaboration with the International People Plant Council and the International Society for Horticultural Sciences. And the Journal of Therapeutic Horticulture published an article on Nova Scotia Horticulture for Health activity in 2020. What has been really exciting to see is the exponential growth of horticulture-focused programs, organizations, and trends, these promoting human health and well-being in the last 20 years, particularly accelerated in the last 5 years. The term human issues in horticulture was the term used previously to identify areas where horticulture promoted health. Ralph and Lohr's 2003 paper, published in Hort Science, used 8 categories using the term life quality to refer to areas where horticulture health connections existed. They and others like Shoemaker and Raskin et al. Broaden the understanding of the role plants play, moving beyond their traditional horticulture parameters of food, fiber, and medicine. Today's diverse horticulture for health activities and programs don't fall into neat lines. They are across disciplines and sectors, reflecting current practices in health services, education, food production, business, landscape architecture, and green industry. Horticulture for Health presents new perspectives of how horticulture is being used for human health improvements and presents lots of new exciting models, including diverse initiatives like digitized horticulture technology seen here, ecotherapy, parks RX, forest breathing, social enterprise businesses growing edibles and shipping containers to expand food access, and conferences like this one, a session at the 2016 RHS Hampton Court Flower Show discussing economic and social return on investment of horticulture on health and well-being. Fast forward 20 years to now, and we see developments in many fields, including psychology, medicine, nutrition, public health, and horticulture. These have produced evolutionary change such that a refreshed review better explains current models like this reflexology path in a medicinal garden and numerous other activities and concepts where horticulture impacts human health. Developing the concept of horticulture for health, criteria for this began with initiatives or organizations where horticulture-specific attributes were defining and/or distinguishing characteristics. Horticulture was defined as a branch within agriculture, dealing with edible and ornamental plants, typically on a smaller scale than agriculture, with the scope and scale distinguishing horticulture from agriculture. The philosophical foundation for Horticulture for Health was based on three constructs common to all of the initiatives. Biophilia, a widely accepted theory of man's intrinsic need to connect to the natural world, is an essential element. It's a pathway to improving human health and well-being through engagement with nature, which can include but is not limited to horticulture. Health, defined from a salutogenic orientation, where factors including those from emotional, physical, mental, psychological, and spiritual health domains are determinants of health, rather than health defined from a pathogenic orientation. And thirdly, a framework based on Naomi Sachs' Landscapes for Health concept that orders components with similar characteristics into categories. Examining horticulture-specific activity and concepts where health is a core tenet revealed 5 distinct subsets, each with specific characteristics. Take a moment to look at this chart, and then I will present it in more manageable bits. With so much activity where horticulture plays a significant role in health, it was challenging to put it into only 5 categories, but this reflects significant areas where horticulture is being used currently, some the same and some different from 20 years ago. The 5 categories are health services that use horticulture as an integral part within a therapeutic modality framework, groups or movements using horticulture as a catalyst for social interactions, landscapes for health, specifically designed landscapes, food, nutrition, and food security, and horticultural practices. Now, a brief overview of each of the 5 categories, beginning with horticulture being used as an integral component within a therapeutic modality framework. Traditional therapeutic disciplines like horticultural, occupational, recreation, and physical therapy are and have been using horticulture or therapeutic garden settings as one option within their treatment regimens. For example, a therapeutic horticulture program within a jail setting with a vocational horticulture focus seen here. Dietitians, mental health, social work, public garden, and public health professionals are also delivering services to a wide range of populations, among them people diagnosed with eating disorders, diabetes, and cancer, as well as children involved in school nutrition programs. Treatment can include plants, gardening activities, garden settings, adaptive garden tools, and techniques. And while not all professionals in these disciplines utilize plant-based interventions, it is being used more frequently in allied health professions. A second subset is nature-based therapeutic models, which are rooted in the relationship between human beings and the natural world. Nature-based therapies, along with wilderness camps, aromatherapy, forest therapy, and forest bathing, sometimes called Shinrin-yoku, use therapeutic modality principles as underpinnings for their health services, where horticultural activities can be integrated into these practices. This category also includes eco-psychology, ecotherapy, and veteran-to-farmer programs, the latter using horticulture and other farming tasks as part of a therapeutic process to address physical and psychological health challenges. Care farms, similarly structured, are used with a variety of populations diagnosed with substance misuse, intellectual disabilities, trauma, PTSD, and stress. This example, a care farm in Norfolk, United Kingdom. Category 2 of the Horticulture for Health framework, groups or movements that use horticulture as a catalyst for social interactions, promoting sense of community and social cohesion. Research validates the role positive social interactions play in health, both psychologically and sociologically. Awareness of this health factor has become more pronounced with COVID-19 restrictions on social interactions. Urban farms and community gardens are important as physical gathering spots, providing an inclusive location for social interactions and for sharing common commitment to environmental concerns, sharing of plant knowledge and materials among participants, community building, food production, and preservation of culture, food and other. And urban farms and community gardens straddle the two subsets of this category. Some participants affiliate for political social change reasons, others affiliate for apolitical reasons. In the last decade, interest in social justice, food policy, and food security has propelled greater numbers of people to turn to urban farms and community gardens as local grassroots initiatives for advancing their concerns, their practices, and social connections, both as individuals and collective groups, though not all who participate do so with this intent, but all seek to do hands-on gardening in a community setting. The social interactions category developed into two subsets: apolitical models, where social interaction is centered around horticultural activities. These include horticulture associations like Native Plant Societies, the American Public Garden Association, along with master gardener programs and garden clubs, and green industry professional trade associations. All of these social networks use workshops, conferences, plant sales, and community services projects to affiliate, to build social capital, and to interact. School gardens have a different form of social engagement, attracting a specific grouping: parents, students, educators, who seek to foster social and behavioral interaction in this horticulture-centric setting. The political models include groups focused on social change, with horticulture, food justice as their common bond for affiliations, identity, and social cohesion. So what social groupings fall into this category? Well, food security groups at local, regional, and national levels, part social movement, part food security movement, intent on transforming the food system using social interactions for knowledge transfer, policy reform, food action, and community restructuring. And food alliances, another model, which seek to improve access to healthy food through economies of scale for food costs while promoting connections between consumers and local growers. Also, food literacy nonprofits, another model where social networking and affiliation share knowledge on food education. And related initiatives like biodiversity projects, meal distribution, sensory and traveling gardens, upcycling food waste and food rescue, and horticulture and farming techniques. Another important category is landscapes for health, defined by Naomi Sachs as any landscape designed or wild that facilitates human health and well-being. Referencing Bell et al.'s thought that landscape space itself is not intrinsically therapeutic, but rather the relationship and experiences in the landscape enable healing and health improvements, the Horticulture for Health framework narrowed this down to designed landscapes, those with intentional plantings of horticultural specimens. This includes population-specific therapeutic gardens. Think gardens at veteran facilities, pediatric hospitals, and cancer centers. This photo is the Block Cancer Survivors Plaza at Chadwick Arboretum in Ohio. Such gardens include green spaces and platforms for health services, including ecotherapy, horticultural therapy, nutrition counseling, and infusion treatment, as well as restorative space and facility beautification. Other types of healing gardens: restorative gardens, enabling gardens, and food gardens, a different type and approach to horticulture health connections. Design landscape elements, that's hardscapes and softscapes, were included as part of Landscapes for Health, promoting health in a variety of ways. For example, improved accessibility, reducing physical barriers, improved indoor air quality through plant absorption, and ones that provide sense of place and/or sensory stimulation, important for elder and mental health populations, for example. Newer models of Landscape for Health include Parks RX, which provide programs supporting passive restoration, and some with combination social services and nature connection. Another major category within horticulture for health is food, nutrition, and food security. The relationship between human health and plant-based food and nutrition has existed for centuries, as has food deprivation. Research undertaken in the last 20 years has more thoroughly linked negative health, poor nutrition, and food insecurity, the latter considered to be a complex global social health crisis poignantly exposed during COVID-19. Food and nutrition and the benefits of plant-based diets, superfoods, nutrient-dense foods, and impacts on cancer, mortality rates, and neurodegenerative disease have progressed. One of the more recent developments, the emerging field of nutritional cognitive neuroscience, and its insights into nutrition as an important health determinant, impacting brain fatigue, mood, and inflammation. And consumer-driven trends for healthy, local, and sustainably grown edible plants has created demand within the green industry. Food purchase patterns across healthcare, hospitality, and educational sectors substantiate this. Food security has become more prominent in the last 10 years, touching multiple sectors, including public health. Newer models like food security organizations and initiatives seeking to alleviate hunger and hence related health deficits demonstrate where horticulture intersects health. Food literacy groups have introduced models like food upskilling festivals. Bread labs like this one, promoting whole grain bread among cooks, educators, students, and entrepreneurs. Atlantic Canada organic food biodiversity programs and seed banks. Dreaming Out Loud's Urban Horticulture and Farmers Market Workforce Development Program, a very different model of food security. Food distribution models represent innovative approaches within this category. Food alliances, for example, community bulk buying clubs, and food box programs, community commercial kitchens and freezers, and this community kitchen at Standing Rock, which is preparing traditional Lakota food. Food pharmacy, Food RX model, linking food resources with healthcare, targeting at-risk populations prone to diabetes, heart disease, and food insecurity. Other models of food security, research think tanks like the Mount St. Vincent University's Food Arc, academic institutions initiating public policy, action, advocacy, and funding for food security projects, many related to sustainable communities. And small-scale food production sites like food forests, community gardens, urban farms, and home gardens, which are playing a crucial role in food security and the food access health connection. Other examples, gleaning programs and CSAs, community-supported agriculture. These combine local hands-on horticultural activities, growing and distributing healthy food while providing social inclusion and strategies for improving nutrition at the community level. And the fifth horticulture for health category is horticultural practices, a broad spectrum of horticulture health impacts from plants, horticulture technology, environmental and regulatory requirements, and consumer preferences. These can have direct health impact, indirect in the case of environmental fallout, or extemporaneous as business decisions within the green industry. Trends have highlighted the balance between business, environment, and health factors, reflecting the complex and evolving nature of horticulture practices and their link to human health and well-being. The ones that I would like to highlight: the insatiable consumer preference for plant-based protein crops, organic foods, and heirloom edibles. Consumer demand for safety and transparency for all types of plant products, not just edibles. Consumer interest in all things plants, gardens, and gardening. That's house plants, foodscaping, gardening as self-care, Welchmers, and green industry best practices, which includes addressing societal concerns, re GMOs, chemical sensitivities, foodborne pathogens, with ever-evolving production practices like this use of refurbished shipping containers for hydroponic plant production, advances in horticulture technology and digital tools supporting higher yields and nutrient-dense foods. And businesses focused on the same, improvements for horticulture and agricultural products and processes, including plant-based alternative foods, techniques to hasten maturity of fruit. This wide array of horticulture-centric activity is supported by research, up-to-date resources, and models proven effective. I encourage you to take a look at these as a starting point for your efforts. At the end of the presentation, I've included additional research from this topic. I've tried to introduce many models of horticulture for health to demonstrate the range and diversity of this overarching paradigm, but there are a few more to share. Increasing numbers of garden features, specifically for use by physical therapy and other therapies using evidence-based design. Plants used for medicinal purposes. Horticulture for health includes herbal remedies, typically produced in small quantities versus plant-based pharmaceuticals commercially manufactured. These are being used in greater numbers as plant-based alternative strategies consistent with usage by third world populations who rely on herbal remedies. Economic tools like endowment funds and land trusts being used to purchase land for small-scale food production sites like urban farms and community gardens. And government venture capital awarded to emerging horticulture-centric entrepreneurial ventures for such things as techniques to hasten maturity of Honeycrisp apple fruit yields, development of plant-based egg alternatives, and online marketplace connecting local farms to new buyers. Another model, reestablishment of roadside farm markets and expanding numbers of farmers markets which provide direct-to-consumer outlets and locally grown fresh produce. And programs like Our Food Project initiative from Ecology Action Centre, funded through the Public Health Agency of Canada, with a primary purpose of reconnecting food and community by tackling food security issues as a public health strategy through installation of dozens of gardens and hundreds of workshops delivered to people who are food insecure, marginalized, and primarily from rural communities. It generated 30 policy changes and more than 250 horticulture-related collaborative initiatives, much of it delivered through community organizations, including 10 regional food alliances and garden networks. Gardens for public grieving, war cenotaphs, cemeteries, and memorials. Are they part of this horticulture for health paradigm? Many would argue they are, as landscapes for health and healing, with increasing need for such restorative spaces as sadly levels of violence, conflict, and civil unrest continue to escalate. Now, a few insights that underscore the alignment of horticulture and health. There is expanding use of horticulture for strategies addressing mental and emotional health in a wider range of populations. heightened awareness from veterans' health challenges, for example, and more recently from COVID-19, have necessitated alternative and integrative strategies for dealing with these mental and emotional health issues. Food security. It continues to grow as an important societal concern, one that has generated grassroots action, research, government support, small and large-scale food production models involving horticulture activity by individuals and communities and all types of organizations. This sector will continue to be significant in the future. Understanding how horticulture impacts health, recognizing and embracing new models in non-traditional as well as traditional sectors includes crossover between health, education, business, and horticulture. This positions horticulture-centric activity as a significant player in health. The Horticulture for Health framework orders current activities, organization, services, and models that use horticulture to improve human health, and in so doing, identifies new applications across a broad expanse. The exciting point being the scope of activities, which I've tried to touch on, the Horticulture for Health paradigm and its framework, present a way of looking at the big picture, embracing the diverse ways horticulture impacts health. Horticulture is making an important contribution to human health in so many ways. The next 4 slides include some of the research for this presentation, unless already listed previously.
Great, that's super. Jessica, I think we're done with that presentation. So now I get the whole floor. Hopefully from this presentation, you have been introduced to some new concepts or some new models. And, we're hoping that all of you working in the field or using horticulture might borrow these ideas and build on them, because horticulture health connections are expansive, they're significant, they're important. So, please consider that. How we'd like to proceed now, if you have questions, can you put them in the chat box, please, and I'll try and respond. And while you're doing that, I'd like to say that the peer-reviewed publication that was mentioned, Horticulture for Health Framework, has not been published in 2021 through Acta Horticulturae. They are in process in press, and it's expected that that publication issue will be available in 2022. And that was the paper that was done as part of the AHTA IPPC AHS conference. That was in October. Okay, so I'm going to try and read the questions that come forward. I know that we have quite a spectrum of participants tonight. It looks like Brooke is a therapeutic recreation professional. I know we have some master gardeners. I recognize some people doing horticultural therapy, therapeutic horticulture. And so perhaps you have some questions about some of the models or programs that were presented. And as I mentioned at the beginning of this, please visit the Florida Horticulture for Health Network website. We have a resource hub, and we've used the 5 categories that were presented in this webinar, and we are offering resources, research, actual programs, a lot of web links. I see Siang is on the webinar tonight. She's helping put all of that information on the webinar. So thank you, Siang, for doing that. And I think that that will help with some papers or some better understanding of some of these models.
Okay, it looks like Susie has a question there. I'm not sure.
Yes, great. Thanks, Jessica. Thank you for the presentation, says Susan Morgan. In your view, how has the Horticulture for Health framework been received by the HTTH community? Okay, that's a good question. I would say because we
And
have,
can you please explain the acronyms for those that might be new to this?
yes,
group?
okay. How has the Horticulture for Health framework been received by the horticultural therapeutic horticulture community? Thanks, Jessica. I think the fact that we have two networks now using the Horticulture for Health term, both of those have been grounded or really begun by people who are trained and experienced in horticultural therapy. And so I think the Horticulture for Health network, and Susan Morgan, you were actually part of this evolving out of horticultural therapy. We recognized that horticultural therapy had many benefits, but we were learning about and using different techniques or models or programs like aromatherapy, for example, or forest bathing, and they didn't fall neatly into horticultural therapy, but they were important aspects of how horticulture was being used to promote human health. So this has been a direct outgrowth. Many of the people who are familiar with Horticulture for Health in the two networks and at the conferences, as I say, are part of the horticultural therapy group. But I think that many of us also are recognizing that allied health professionals, like people doing occupational therapy, recreation therapy, that they in fact are using gardening, adaptive gardening tools and techniques, therapeutic gardens. And so we wanted to include those. Now, it's the scope of Horticulture for Health is much broader than horticultural therapy, but I think that with an understanding of practitioners in that field, that's going to help grow it if that's what resonates with people. To me, this is a concept or a term, horticulture for health, that is either going to be of interest and relevant to people doing work. And, you know, we cover business as well as food security, food alliances, and perhaps it won't be. So I think time will tell on that. Okay, next question from Nancy. What is the difference between horticultural therapy and therapeutic horticulture? Woo, okay, I'm going to say you probably need to take a course or read a book. I'm going to give you the 101 version of this. Horticultural therapy is delivered by trained, credentialed, professional horticultural therapists, delivering gardening and plant activities in the context of a treatment plan. And we use charting. That's a component of horticultural therapy. So for those of you not familiar with it, this would be a clinical treatment modality that we use, including plant and gardening activities. Therapeutic horticulture is similar, but according to the American Horticultural Therapy Association, and this will vary by professional associations in different countries, therapeutic horticulture is not clinically defined. It's plant and gardening activities delivered by somebody with training with horticulture as a medium for well-being and health, but they don't have to be a horticultural therapist registered, and we don't do clinical charting. So I think that's probably the easiest way to explain it for people not as familiar with this field. And again, I do encourage you, the University of Florida has a good EPUB out on horticultural therapy, which has the definitions, or I encourage you to go to the American Horticultural Therapy Association website. They're very clear on what the specifics of each of these two modalities are. Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions. Am I missing anything? Good. Okay, so it looks like this was a lot to take in. It certainly was a lot to research and write. Again, I encourage you to look at the research, particularly if there's one area of horticulture for health that you're interested in, and you can find lots of resources on the Florida Horticulture for Health Network, as well as the paper that should be published in 2022 Horticulture for Health Framework. So thank you for joining us tonight. And if you have any questions, you can contact us through the Florida Horticulture for Health Network email address, and I'll try to respond to your questions there. Thank you.